The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that stretched across the dense expanse of the wilderness. Terence, Elliot, and Liam, three old friends whose lives had taken divergent paths, found themselves reunited by a shared desire for adventure as they embarked on a portaging trip for the weekend. Despite the years that had passed since they last stood together, the bond forged in their youth remained unbroken, a flickering ember of camaraderie that had endured the test of time. With laughter and reminiscences filling the air, they piled into their cars and set off for the edge of the forest, eager to leave the burdens of their everyday lives behind and lose themselves in the untamed wilderness. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, and the distant call of a lone bird echoed through the trees. Terence, the pragmatic doctor, surveyed their surroundings with a critical eye, his brow furrowed in concentration. Beside him, Elliot fidgeted nervously, his clumsy movements betraying his apprehension. Liam, the fearless business owner, radiated a sense of excitement, his eyes shining with anticipation. Arriving at the parking lot, they shouldered their packs and set off into the forest's heart, the towering trees looming overhead like silent sentinels guarding the secrets of the woods. The air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, the rustling of leaves beneath their feet a soothing symphony that echoed through the silent woods. With a final glance exchanged between them, they plunged into the forest. As they navigated the winding trails and rocky paths, the cares of the modern world slipped away, replaced by a sense of freedom and exhilaration that only nature could provide, the dense foliage swallowing them whole. The woods seemed to pulse with life, each rustle of leaves and crack of twigs hinting at unseen creatures lurking just beyond sight. The shadows grew longer as the sun dipped lower, casting an eerie glow upon the path ahead. Venturing deeper into the wilderness, the forest enveloped them in a cocoon of silence, broken only by the occasional chirp of a cricket or the rustle of underbrush. The towering trees loomed overhead, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers grasping at the sky. A sense of foreboding settled over the trio, the weight of the unknown pressing down upon them like a suffocating blanket. Yet despite the growing unease, a thrill of excitement coursed through their veins. This was their chance to escape the monotony of everyday life, to embrace the wild and untamed beauty of the natural world. With each step, they drew closer to the heart of the wilderness, their destiny intertwined with the mysteries that lay hidden within its depths. Upon reaching the tranquil shores of the lake, they breathed a collective sigh of relief, the shimmering waters stretching out before them like a vast expanse of possibility. Without hesitation, they launched their canoe into the calm waters, the rhythmic sound of their paddles cutting through the stillness of the morning, as they made their way toward the remote island that awaited them in the wilderness. With each stroke, the distance between them and the outside world grew, replaced by the tranquil beauty of the natural world and the promise of adventure that lay ahead. Little did they know that their journey into the unknown would test their courage, their resilience, and their bond as friends in ways they could never have imagined. As the shadows lengthened and the forest whispered its secrets, Terence, Elliot, and Liam pressed on into the unknown, unaware of the horrors that awaited them in the heart of the wilderness. As the fading light of day cast elongated shadows through the dense canopy overhead, the trio of friends pressed deeper into the heart of the wilderness. Terence led the way with a confident stride, his gaze scanning the forest floor for any signs of danger. Elliot trailed behind, his nervous fidgeting betraying his growing unease, while Liam brought up the rear, his easy smile masking the sense of foreboding that lingered in the air. The path ahead narrowed, leading the group into a labyrinth of towering trees and tangled undergrowth. With each step, the silence of the woods deepened, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant cry of a nocturnal creature. As they ventured further from the safety of civilization, a palpable tension hung in the air, thickening with each passing moment. Suddenly, a sharp cry pierced the stillness, followed by the sickening sound of metal snapping shut. The friends froze in their tracks, their hearts pounding in unison as they turned to confront the source of the disturbance. There, caught in the cruel jaws of a hunter's trap, lay Elliot, his face contorted in pain as blood seeped from his wounded leg. Time seemed to slow to a crawl as Terence rushed to Elliot's side, his hands trembling as he worked to free him from the trap's grasp. Liam hovered nearby, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of danger as the fading light of day gave way to the encroaching darkness of night. With a final, desperate tug, Terence managed to pry the trap open, releasing Elliot from its cruel embrace. But the damage had been done, the forest echoing with Elliot's anguished cries as he clutched his injured leg. With no time to spare and nightfall fast approaching, the friends knew they had to find help before it was too late. In the fading light, they surveyed their surroundings, seeking any sign of civilization amidst the sea of trees. It was then that they spotted it, a flickering light in the distance, accompanied by the telltale scent of wood smoke. With a shared sense of urgency, they hoisted Elliot to his feet and began the arduous journey towards the distant beacon of hope, unaware of the horrors that awaited them in the shadows of the night. Meanwhile, miles away unbeknownst to the trio, far in the distance a large dark figure, hidden in the wealth of foliage and darkness the wilderness has to offer, is watching. The woodsman's head tracks them imperceptibly as they begin to head towards his secluded domicile in the forest. With great haste, but also silently, the woodsman sprints off on an interception course toward the unknowing trio and his cabin. Terence and Liam struggled to assist Elliot through the uneven terrain of the wilderness. The cabin, now in sight, was eerie and dilapidated. Surrounded by tall trees and thick brush, it almost seemed abandoned if not for the faint flickering lights that could be seen through the windows. As they approached the cabin, a sinister aura seemed to emanate from its weathered facade. The dense woods pressed in around them, their towering sentinels casting elongated shadows that danced menacingly in the fading light of day. Each creak of the floorboards beneath their feet echoed like a portent of doom, sending shivers down their spines as they hesitantly stepped closer. As they approached the porch of the weathered cabin, there was a strange calm. From the roof of the porch hung animal furs and various hunting tools left to dry in the sun. Although there were many signs of life, the only sounds came from the trio, now standing at the foot of the porch stairs. Desperate to find help for his friend, Terence called out,
"Hello? Is anyone in there? My friend is seriously injured and needs help."
Silence. Terence, now leaving Liam to bear the weight of Elliot, ascends the stairs to knock on the front door. Terence begins with a light knock with no response. He tried again with more force, and the door, battered and splintered, swung open with a bone-chilling creak, revealing the dimly lit interior of the cabin. Liam and Elliot limp up the stairs to join Terence at the door. A sickly sweet odor hung heavy in the air, mingling with the musty scent of decay. Terence, Elliot and Liam exchanged uneasy glances, their apprehension palpable as they cautiously crossed the threshold into the unknown. Inside, the cabin appeared frozen in time, its furnishings draped in tattered cobwebs and layers of dust. The flickering glow of a dying fire cast eerie shadows across the walls, distorting the outlines of the sinister implements that adorned the room. Rusty tools hung from hooks, their surfaces stained with dried blood, while crude restraints lay scattered across the floor like the remnants of some macabre ritual. As they explored further, a sense of foreboding settled over them like a suffocating shroud. Terence's rational mind struggled to reconcile the horrors they witnessed with the logical explanations he desperately sought. Elliot's nerves were frayed, his clumsy movements betraying his fear, while Liam's bravado wavered in the face of the unknown. Suddenly a sound pierced the silence, a low, guttural growl that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. The friends froze, their hearts pounding in their chests, as they turned towards the front door, where they saw the shadowy figure, the true owner of this cabin, the woodsman. His hulking frame silhouetted against the flickering firelight. With a silent gaze that bore into their souls, the woodsman crept closer to the trio, his eyes gleaming with an inscrutable ferocity. Terence's breath caught in his throat, his rationality crumbling in the face of such palpable terror. Elliot trembled, his limbs paralyzed by fear, while Liam's resolve hardened into a steely determination. Terence took a step forward with determination on his face.
"We're sorry for barging in. We just need a bit of help. A phone if you have one?"
The trio received nothing but a blank stare from the massive man, who was now breathing heavier and growing convincingly angrier. He took one step forward. The friends staggered one step back. Elliot, struggling with the pain and leaking blood from the deep laceration in his leg, faintly blurts out,
"Please, I need help."
The woodsman approached them, ushering them further into the cabin. A sense of impending doom gripped them like a vice. With each step, they descended deeper into the heart of darkness, their fate inexorably intertwined with the horrors that lurked within the foreboding cabin in the woods. The air within the foreboding cabin hung heavy with the stench of decay, as if the very walls themselves exhaled the secrets of the woodsman's malevolence. Terence, Elliot, and Liam stood in tense silence, their eyes darting warily around the dimly lit space, where shadows danced in macabre celebration of their imprisonment. The flickering candlelight cast grotesque shapes upon the walls, distorting reality into a nightmare. Liam's voice, steady but tinged with an undercurrent of dread, broke the silence as he addressed the looming figure of the woodsman.
We just need some bandages or a phone to call for help. We haven't seen anything.
His demanding words echoed through the cabin like a dire omen. But the woodsman remained silent, his towering presence casting a pall of unease over the room. Terence cautiously started examining his surroundings, the air heavy with the scent of pine and the unmistakable tang of blood. His senses were assaulted by the unsettling sight that greeted him. His eyes swept across the walls adorned with gruesome trophies, the mounted heads of deer and other woodland creatures glaring down at him with empty eyes. Yet, amidst the macabre display, something far more sinister lurked in the shadows. It was then that Terence's gaze fell upon a chilling revelation. Scattered among the trophies were photographs of human faces, their expressions frozen in fear and agony. A cold shiver ran down Liam's spine as the horrifying truth dawned upon him. The man who inhabited this cabin was not merely a hunter of beasts, but a predator of the most dangerous game of all, human beings. With every passing second, the realization sank in deeper, sending tendrils of dread creeping through his veins as he came to grips with the horrifying reality of the man they now faced. Liam, his hands trembling with fear, stepped forward, his voice barely an audible whisper.
We have to go.
Please, I need help. Our friend is injured. We need to get him to a hospital.
Terence pleaded, his eyes pleading for mercy from the silent behemoth before them. But the woodsman's expression remained impassive, his gaze as cold and unforgiving as the depths of the abyss. Liam, his jaw set with determination, took a step towards the woodsman, his fists clenched in defiance.
Look, we don't mean you any harm. We'll just go,
he declared, his voice a defiant challenge to the darkness that surrounded them. But as he moved closer, a glint of steel caught the dim light, revealing the deadly blade clenched in the woodsman's massive hand. A palpable tension hung in the air, thick with the weight of impending doom. The friends realized with growing horror that they were trapped, at the mercy of a silent predator, whose intentions were as inscrutable as the shadows that enveloped them. With every passing moment, the cabin seemed to close in around them, suffocating them with the oppressive weight of their fear. As the realization of their plight sank in, Terence, Elliot, and Liam exchanged glances filled with unspoken dread. They knew that they must find a way to escape the clutches of the woodsman and the horrors that lurked within the cabin's walls. But as the silence stretched on, broken only by the sound of their ragged breaths, they understood that their fight for survival had only just begun. As the three friends stood frozen in terror, their eyes locked on the hulking figure of the woodsman standing menacingly before them, a cold sweat broke out across their brows. The dim light of the cabin flickered ominously, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls, amplifying the sense of dread that hung heavy in the air. Elliot's leg, mangled and bloodied from the woodsman's brutal trap, throbbed with agonizing pain, rendering him unable to move without assistance. With the woodsman brandishing a gleaming knife, blocking their only path to escape, Terence and Liam knew they had no choice but to confront the terrifying reality of their situation head-on. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, Terence and Liam exchanged a silent, determined nod before springing into action. With Elliot hoisted between them, they dashed further into the cabin, their frantic footsteps echoing through the narrow corridors as they searched desperately for an avenue of escape. Spotting a window at the far end of the room, Terence and Liam exchanged a wordless glance before hurling themselves toward it, their movements fueled by sheer desperation and primal instinct. With a deafening crash, they shattered the glass barrier, the shards raining down around them like a deadly hailstorm as they tumbled out into the darkness beyond. their breaths ragged and hearts pounding with adrenaline-fueled terror. But as they staggered to their feet and fled into the dense woods, the woodsman's chilling presence loomed ominously behind them, his slow, deliberate steps echoing through the silent night like the toll of a funeral bell. Though they ran with all the strength they could muster, they knew deep down that their pursuer would not be deterred so easily. With each agonizing heartbeat, the realization sank in deeper. They were not just fleeing from a man, but from a predator whose insatiable hunger for blood and suffering knew no bounds. As they disappeared into the suffocating embrace of the woods, they could feel the woodsman's sinister eyes watching them through the darkness, a haunting reminder of the horrors that awaited them in the depths of the wilderness if they failed to escape. As the night enveloped the dense woods in an impenetrable shroud of darkness, Terence, Elliot, and Liam found themselves locked in a desperate struggle for survival against the relentless pursuit of the woodsman. Their breaths came in ragged gasps, their hearts hammering against their ribs like the drums of a macabre symphony echoing through the trees. With each step they took, the looming shadows seemed to reach out with spectral fingers, threatening to drag them into the abyss of the unknown. The men paused to catch their breath.
We have to get back to the canoes. After that, we can push off and get help on the other side.
Liam insisted as they trudged through the forest, eager to create some distance between them and the ruthless hunter. Both Terence and Liam look at Elliot, his face flushed white, his breaths heavy, and the wound on his leg still leaking profusely. Liam cracks a faint grin and offers some words of encouragement to Elliot.
Don't worry, buddy. We both know you can't get any worse looking. We'll have you home and fixed up in no time.
Behind them, the distant crackling of leaves alerted them to the woodsman's presence approaching, a relentless reminder of the imminent danger that pursued them. Branches snapped like bones beneath his relentless stride, his presence a malevolent spectre that haunted their every move. They dared not look back, fearing the sight of his towering form emerging from the darkness like a nightmare given flesh. They hoisted Elliot back to his feet and pressed on. Desperation fueled their flight as they navigated through the labyrinthine maze of the woods, their senses heightened to the point of agony. Every rustle of leaves, every whisper of the wind, sent shivers down their spines, amplifying the terror that gripped their hearts like icy talons. The woods seemed to twist and contort around them, a living, breathing entity that conspired to ensnare them in its grasp. Yet amidst the chaos, a glimmer of hope flickered in the back of Liam's mind. The beacon they had left in the canoe could be their salvation if they can get back to it.
The beacon in the boat, if we can get back to it, we can signal for help right away.
It also has a timer. In the event we take too long, it will automatically send a signal. We should get back as soon as possible,
Terence suggested. As they burst through the thicket of trees, they came upon a steep hill. Gripping onto Elliot firmly, they began their ascent over the hill, and seemingly to their salvation. As Terence and Liam strained against the weight of their injured friend, Elliot, their muscles burning with exertion, the steep incline of the hill seemed to stretch endlessly before them, like a cruel, unyielding adversary. The dense foliage of the forest closed in around them, casting dappled shadows across their path as they struggled to find purchase on the treacherous terrain. With every step, Elliot's pained gasps echoed through the silent woods, a haunting reminder of the urgency of their plight and the stakes of their journey. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds stacked against them, Terence and Liam pressed on, their determination unwavering as they clung to the slim hope of reaching the summit before it was too late. At long last, their efforts were rewarded as they crested the final ridge, the cool breeze of the mountaintop washing over them like a balm for their weary souls. Relief flooded through them as they collapsed onto the rocky ground, their chests heaving with exhaustion and their limbs trembling with exertion. But their moment of respite was short-lived, shattered by the sickening sound of a sharp twang slicing through the air. With a cry of pain, Elliot stumbled forward, an arrow buried deep in his back, its cruel barbs staining his shirt crimson with blood. Shock and horror rippled through Terence and Liam as they watched in stunned disbelief, their minds reeling with the realization that their journey was far from over. They looked back to see the woodsman at the bottom of the hill, aiming his bow in their direction. Seeing that he hit his target, he then began his ascent. Pulling Elliot over the peak, out of harm's way, Terence checks his pulse. Terence shook his head as he lowered Elliot's lifeless hand back at his side. The dangers of the woodsman loomed larger and more sinister than they could have ever imagined.
We have to go. Elliot is gone. We need to get back to the beacon on the canoe.
Terence frantically explained to Liam, who was now in a complete state of shock as he looked at his friend's bloodied, lifeless body. Terence's now distant steps brought Liam back to awareness. Taking one last look at his friend, Liam got up and began his descent down towards their salvation waiting on the shore. Liam's heart thundered in his chest as he raced down through the dense undergrowth, his breath coming in ragged gasps that echoed through the silent woods. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of twigs beneath his feet sent shivers down his spine, a chilling reminder of the relentless hunter that pursued them. With each passing moment, the distance between him and his friend Terence seemed to grow, the beacon of hope on the distant shore of the lake tauntingly out of reach. Despite the ache in his muscles and the burning in his lungs, Liam pressed on, his determination unwavering, as he fought to outpace the shadowy figure that lurked just beyond the edge of his vision. The darkness of the forest closed in around him like a suffocating embrace, the trees twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes that seemed to reach out and ensnare him in their gnarled limbs. But as he stumbled through the tangled underbrush, his eyes fixed on the flickering light of the beacon that beckoned him home, Liam knew that he could not afford to falter. With every ounce of strength he possessed, he pushed himself forward, the distant sound of Terence's footfalls spurring him on like a beacon in the night. And as he drew closer to the shore of the lake, his heart swelled with hope, the promise of safety and salvation, tantalizingly close at hand. Yet, little did he know that the true horror of the forest lay not in the shadows that stalked him from behind, but in the darkness that lurked within the hearts of men. Suddenly, a bone-chilling howl pierced the air, freezing Liam in his tracks. A terrifying thought came over him, knowing that the woodsman was closing in, his bloodlust driving him ever closer to his prey. With trembling hands, he pressed on, his heart pounding in his chest like the beat of a funeral drum. Liam was eager to catch up to Terence. As the moon hung low in the ink-black sky, Terence and Elliot stumbled through the dense undergrowth, their breaths ragged and their hearts pounding with a primal fear. But still, they pressed on, driven by a desperate determination to escape the nightmare that had ensnared them. They stumbled over gnarled roots and jagged rocks, their bodies battered and bruised, their spirits on the brink of collapse. Yet still, they refused to surrender to the encroaching darkness, clinging to the fragile hope that they might yet find salvation in the depths of the haunted woods. For a fleeting moment, they allowed themselves to believe that they had escaped the clutches of their tormentor, that they were free at last from the nightmare that had threatened to consume them. But as they turned towards the distant lights of civilization, a cold dread settled over them, a chilling reminder that the darkness they had left behind still lingered, waiting patiently in the shadows for its next unsuspecting prey. As they reached the edge of the forest, their lungs burning with exertion and their limbs trembling with exhaustion, they dared to steal a glance behind them, expecting to see the looming figure of the woodsman closing in for the kill. But to their astonishment, there was nothing but the silent expanse of the moonlit clearing, the oppressive stillness broken only by the distant cry of a lone wolf. As Liam stumbled onto the shore of the lake, his chest heaving with exertion, relief washed over him like a tidal wave. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to bask in the glow of the moonlight, the promise of safety and salvation beckoning him from the distant horizon. But as he turned to greet his friend Terence, his joy turned to confusion and then to horror. There, standing before him, was Terence, his face twisted into a sinister grin that sent chills down Liam's spine. In his hands, he held the remnants of the homing beacon and the shattered remains of the canoe, now floating in the water. Their hopes of escape dashed to pieces at his feet. Liam's heart sank as he realized the horrifying truth. Terence had betrayed him, his supposed friend working in league with the hunter who pursued them.
What have you done?
Liam choked out, his voice barely more than a whisper as he stared at Terence in disbelief. But there was no remorse in Terence's eyes, only a cold, calculating gaze that sent shivers down Liam's spine.
I did what needed to be done. Luckily, you reminded me about the homing beacon, so I made sure to get here as soon as possible to get rid of it.
Terence replied, his voice devoid of emotion as he stepped closer, his presence looming over Liam like a spectre of death.
We were never really friends, Liam. Both of you were always more trouble than you were worth, but now you can make up for all of that.
Liam's mind reeled with shock and betrayal as he stumbled backward, his gaze darting frantically between Terence and the darkness that lay beyond. With the hunter closing in from behind and his supposed friend revealed as a traitor, Liam realized that he was truly alone, trapped in a nightmare from which there was no escape. And as he stared into the abyss of the forest, its depths swallowing him whole, he knew that the true horror of their ordeal had truly come to an end. His end.
But why do this? We've never done anything to you.
Liam's voice echoed into the moonlit forest. A snapping twig close behind Liam caught his attention, but it was too late. Two hulking arms from behind Liam wrapped around his head and neck, confining him in the grasp of a rear-naked choke. The woodsman had come to finish his task. Desperately, Liam thrashed and struggled to try and escape the woodsman's clutches. Using his weight, the bulky man pulled them both to the ground, onto their backs. Liam now coughing and gasping for air, as the world around him slowly started to turn black. Terence walked over and stood over the men as both struggled on the ground. Looking into Liam's fading eyes, he muttered,
"You've never done anything for me either. This is how you can make up for it."
Liam continued to struggle helplessly, with his eyes fading further into darkness. The woodsman, tightening his grip, clenched down in a final effort to end it. A loud snap resonated a short distance, and Liam's body went limp. It was over. The woodsman slumped Liam's body off him and stood to his feet, now face to face with Terence. The moon hung low in the night sky, casting an ethereal glow upon the tranquil surface of the lake, as Terence stood face to face with the brooding woodsman, his gaze fixed on the shadowy figure that emerged from the depths of the forest. The hunter, his features obscured by the darkness as he drew closer, a silent spectre of death in the moonlit night.
"Damn it, you fool!"
Terence spat, his voice laced with venom as he surveyed the carnage that lay before him.
An arrow, an arrow? You were supposed to incapacitate them without damaging their organs. You'd better hope the lungs and heart are still intact.
The hunter remained silent, his expression hidden beneath the brim of his hat as he surveyed the scene with a cold, detached gaze. The bodies of Terence's former companion lay sprawled on the shore, his lifeless forms twisted and broken by the cruel force of the woodsman. Blood stained the sand beneath them, a grim testament to the violence that had unfolded in the darkness of the forest.
"We don't have time for this,"
Terence growled, his patience wearing thin as he turned to face the hunter.
"We need to collect the bodies, harvest their organs, and prepare them for shipping before they are completely useless. These clients won't accept mistakes."
Without a word, the hunter nodded in agreement, his movements precise and methodical as he began to gather the fallen body. Together they worked in silence, their actions fueled by a grim determination to collect the bodies, harvest the organs, and deliver them to their clients, awaiting laying in wait. As they hoisted Liam's body onto their shoulders and turned to disappear into the depths of the forest, the moon cast its eerie light upon their retreating forms, casting long shadows that danced across the sand like spectres of the night. And as they vanished into the darkness, their footsteps echoing through the silent woods, a chill wind swept across the shore, carrying with it the whispers of the fallen and the promise of untold horrors that would stay hidden as secrets of the forest.